Okay, let's go. It's the part two of the exception handling. So here you can say that A, let me say something like this. I will say A equal to int input, and here I will say B equal to int input again, right? Then you will say here, I will say print A divided by B, print A plus B, print A minus B, right? This is my program. Now, if I'm running this program here and I'm giving the A value as 12 and B value as 23, at that time, this is working fine. Means you are getting the division also, you are getting the addition also, you are getting the subtraction as well, right? But if I will run this program again, if the scenario is something like this, I'm giving the 12 here, then I'm giving the 0 here, right? At that time, the program is crashing here, right? This is the one scenario. Again, if I will run this program and here instead of giving the integer, I gave here something like this, right? At the time also it is crashing because it is saying we can't typecast the string to the integer, right? So as of now here in this program, we are seeing the two kinds of error. One kind of error is this value error. Second kind of the error is zero division, right? Second kind of the error is zero division. These are the two errors that I can find as of now here in this program, right? So you will say, sir, can we handle these situations with the if else? Yes, definitely we can handle them with the if else. But you don't know what the user will give here. Maybe at the certain conditions, the user may give something else that you have not handled with the if else statements, that you have not handled if else statement. At the time, also your program will crash, right? When you are not pretty much sure at which scenario the program may crash, at the time you will use the exception handling. Although you can do it with the if else as well, right? One more thing, if I will run it and let me give the input as 12 here, then I'm giving the input as 0. Now see here, this line is perfectly fine, this line is perfectly fine, there is no syntax errors here in this program, right? When I will give the valid input, at the time all the three operations will happen, right? That means there is no error in the program, right? But because of this line number 4, during a runtime, the B value came 0. Because of this denominator as 0, the program got crashed, right? Since इसकी गलती है, गलती इसकी वजह से हुआ, इन दोनों बेचारों की कोई गलती तो है ही नहीं, राइट? दे टू शुड रन परफेक्टली, इन दोनों को तो एग्जीक्यूट होना ही चाहिए था क्योंकि इनकी कोई गलती नहीं है, गलती तो इसकी वजह से है, राइट? एज ऑफ नो यू नो, जो आपका पाइथन वाला प्रोग्राम है दैट इज बीइंग एग्जीक्यूटेड सीक्वेंशियली, पहले ये लाइन एग्जीक्यूट होगी, उसके बाद ये लाइन, इसके बाद ये लाइन, इसके बाद ये लाइन, इसके बाद ये लाइन। ऑल्दो आपका प्रोग्राम यहाँ पे ही क्रैश हो गया, दैट मीन्स ये लाइन्स कभी एग्जीक्यूट होंगी ही नहीं, राइट? ये सिचुएशन है, यहाँ पे तो इशू ही है। टेक एन एग्जाम्पल, एक वर्स्ट केस सिनेरियो में आपको देता हूँ, इट इट्स काइंड ऑफ एग्जांपल यू कैन टेक। सपोज हियर जहाँ पे आपने प्रिंट लिखा है, ये ना आप यहाँ पे आप गाड़ी की एक्सेलरेशन बढ़ा रहे हो, राइट? रेस आप दे रहे हो यहाँ पे, राइट? एंड यहाँ पे एट लाइन नंबर 5 इट इज चेकिंग द डिस्टेंस और ऑब्स्टेकल, क्या कोई ऑब्स्टेकल आ गया है, इट्स चेकिंग दैट थिंग, राइट? एंड यहाँ पे दिस सिचुएशन इफ ऑब्स्टेकल इज डिटेक्टेड, तो ये क्या अप्लाई करेगा? ब्रेक्स, तो ये अप्लाई करेगा ब्रेक, राइट? दैट मीन्स सपोज कर लो व्हेन यू ट्राइड टू एक्सेलरेट, आप ना एक्सेलरेशन इंक्रीज करना चाहते हो गाड़ी की स्पीड, बट वो तो इंक्रीज नहीं हुए बिकॉज ऑफ दिस लाइन, ये फेल हो गया, राइट? ये फेल हो गया। आफ्टर दैट यू हैव टू चेक, क्योंकि गाड़ी स्पीड कांस्टेंट होगी, अभी वही जो था आपका ऑलरेडी वही स्पीड रहेगी, राइट? बट वो कभी ऑब्स्टेकल आगे डिटेक्ट ही नहीं करेगा, राइट? क्योंकि ये लाइन एग्जीक्यूट ही नहीं होगी कभी, तो वो ब्रेक कभी लगाएगा ही नहीं, राइट? बिकॉज ऑफ दिस लाइन यहाँ पे आपका प्रोग्राम फेल हुआ। जब आप गाड़ी की स्पीड इंक्रीज करना चाहते हो, यहाँ पे वो प्रोग्राम फेल हुआ, राइट? फेल होने के बाद ये दोनों लाइन्स को भी एग्जीक्यूट हो ही नहीं जाएगी, राइट? दैट मीन्स आपका एक्सीडेंट हो जाएगा एट द टाइम। सो इन सिनेरियोज में आपको बचना कैसे है, वो हम बचेंगे यूजिंग द एक्सेप्शन हैंडलिंग, राइट? सो कैसे कर लेंगे हम? टेक एन एग्जाम्पल, सो व्हाट वी मीन हियर फॉर दिस प्रोग्राम, यहाँ पे क्या है, अगर हमें एरर आ रहा है बिकॉज ऑफ दिस ए डिवाइड बाय बी सिनेरियो, At the time we should handle this a divided by b, but these two should give the exact output. So for that what I will do is here मैं यहाँ पे क्या करूंगा, मैं यहाँ पे लिखूंगा try, right? Try block में मैं वो कोड लूंगा that I want to execute. Okay, so if this is failing, if this try block is failing, it is generating some kind of a exception that I will catch in the except block. यहाँ से कोई एरर जनरेट होगा, उनको मैं यहाँ पे कैच करूंगा, यहाँ पे I will say print I will say division by 0, or I can say the non-defined as well, right? Now if I will run it, and let me give here the input as 11, and let me give the input as 0 at the time. So program is not crashing, instead it is giving you the division by 0, and ये line भी execute हो रही है और ये line भी execute हो रही है, right? अगर मैं यहाँ पे accept ना लगा लूँ, if I will not use here accept, and I will say directly print a divided by b, see at the time you will not get the output of these two lines, and let me run it, and here I will say 11, and then I will say 0. Okay, it got crashed. Okay, let me say it again. I'll say 11, and after that I'll say 0. Okay, the program is crashing here, and these two lines are never executed. But if I will do something like this, at the time it will be handled, right? Okay, यहाँ पे बस ये आ रहा है division में 0, but these two lines are also executed, right? Now, if inside your program you can have as many accept and try blocks, as many accepts and try blocks. Suppose now if I give the input as something like this, right? Now the program crashed here because of the line number 0, line number 2. Why? Because it is saying this string I can't typecast it to the integer. That's the error. So what we can do, whenever we are taking the input from the user, I will keep it in the try block. And here I will use the accept, and in the exception here, I will keep something like this, print error generated, right? Now if I run it again, and here I'm letting you the input as 11, and second input I'm giving something like this, and it is saying error generated division by 0, b is not defined, right? So यहाँ पे भी, since here he exception has been generated, after that he is trying to perform this operation, because of this b it is having some error. तो यहाँ पे हम इन चीजों को handle कैसे कर सकते हैं? Now here is the error, right? Okay, so what we can do is we can have a nested if else, we can have a nested, oh sorry, we can have a nested this thing exception, right? And here I can say something like this, right? And these two lines of a code, either keep it here or keep it after this try block as well, right? If I will run it now, let's say I'm giving 45 456 because of this, and it is again generated error because of the line number 12. Here it is looking for the b, that b is not here, so I can keep these two things in the exception block as well. I can say that, okay, let me keep the exception here. I'll say try, right, and keep it inside the exception. That means I have to give one indentation here, and here I will say except print something happen, right? Let me run it, and let me give this as the one input. Okay, let me give this as the one input, this as another input. Error generated, something happened, so here is the, these things are handled here at that time. Getting this point? Now if you want to see what kind of a error is being generated, what you can say, simply here accept exception, exception as e, and I will say here comma e, right? And I can also say here as well control C, and let me keep here and here I will say EE is the aliasing, and you can keep here and here as well, and here we say ES, and I'll say here comma ES, right? Now if I run it, and let me use something like this. Okay, now it is saying error generated invalid letter of the into the base this thing, and is not defined because in the first line itself it is getting this thing and it is trying to perform the execution here, वो नहीं हो रहा है, so that's why it is generating that kind of a this output here. I guess this is clear, right? Now there is something called the final. There is something called as the final. Finally is something like that, like if एनीथिंग इज हैपनिंग अबोव, जो भी ऊपर हो रहा है उसको उससे कुछ मतलब नहीं है, एंड दिस फाइनली विल बी ऑलवेज एग्जीक्यूटेड, दिस फाइनली विल बी ऑलवेज एग्जीक्यूटेड. आई एम बीइंग एग्जीक्यूटेड, राइट? Let's say I'll say here something like this, and after that, see it is saying I am being executed. So whatever will happen here, this finally code will definitely will be executed. It is used in the worst case scenarios. Like I'll give you one example. Suppose you opened one file in a read mode, and you want to write on that file. You want to write on that file. So it's a best practice that whenever you open any file, you have to close that file, you have to close that file. So take an example, you opened one file in a read mode, right? That means you can only read that file, you can't write on that file, right? And if you try to write on that file, that means it's an error because you can't write on a file that you are opening in a read mode. वहां तो एरर जनरेट होगा, राइट? तो बट जब भी आप किसी को फाइल को खोल रहे हो एंड उस फाइल को बंद भी करना होता है, राइट? सपोज अगर मैं यहाँ पे एक फाइल खोल रहा हूँ, टेक एन एग्जांपल, लेट मी रिमूव दिस थिंग, लेट मी रिमूव these things. Okay, take an example. Suppose I'm not having here any kind of this thing here, any file here. Let me use one example. Suppose I'm saying a equal to open, and I'm opening the file, let's say txt, and I'm opening it in the read mode, right? That means I can only read this text file. But if I am saying something, the a dot write, write something like this in this file, right? Since I told you, you have opened it into the read mode and you trying to write on it, that's an exception. That means here the error is generated because it will not allow you to write on this file. Getting this thing? So since we have opened this file, now it's the best practice to close that file, right? So to best practice, so at that time I can use the finally in a worst case. In a worst case, I will say a dot close. That means I have to close this file. And here I can perform some other operations here, and I will say exception, exception, exception. Oh, I'll say except, except, and here I will say print like can't write something like this. After that, since you are not able to write but you can read, so here I am trying to read the file, I will say dot read, right? Something like this. That means I will read here the file. This should execute, but because of this reason, since I'm able to execute here, but at the end you have to close this file, and at the time I can use the finally because the finally will be definitely executed. Whether the try block is executing, whether the exception block is executing, or some other line is happening here, this finally block will definitely will be executed at the end. Okay, I will show you the more examples on the final block in the next video. Thank you so much.